if I could do one thing that's going to do 80% of the work for my skin, is it the moisturizing? Is it the...
Alcohol does have a profound effect on the skin. You know, there's some historic examples of people who drink alcohol and chronic rosacea, which is an inflammatory and flushing disorder.
Your central nervous system is not prepared and is not ready for a hard workout. And so instead of going off of how your brain feels, use your heart rate and real data to make that decision.
If you had to do one thing in your life, just skin-wise, obviously stay hydrated.
I don't think people are living under a rock and think that it's healthy, but I don't think people look at it the same way they look at a cigarette.
The laser is actually like a true laser wavelength, and that's the safest way to do hair reduction or hair removal.
When we get a lot of people that come in with weight loss goals, that's one of the first things we're going to. And obviously it is empty calories. We're just trying to find a way to build a lifestyle where you don't, it's just on autopilot. Correlation between exercise and skin health that you know of.
I'm Dr. Anthony Rossi, and this is Give Good Face, a podcast focusing on skincare science, and how to maintain and shape a healthy lifestyle. Hi, everyone. Welcome back to Give Good Face. And back by popular demand is Sam Bartlett of Exis Health and Exis Life Personal Training. Sam, welcome back. We got great reviews for you.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah. We're going to continue the conversation about exercise, health, skin-related changes. And since it's January in New York, we might also focus on dry January and what going alcohol-free means for your health, wellness, and also your skin.
Yeah. Selfishly, I'm a little curious. I have a good idea of what it's doing from a recovery standpoint, but does it have an effect on the way that my skin looks, how I'm aging? Like, is that even a thing? Because I don't think many people think that way.
Yeah. I mean, Sam, you're not aging.
Well,
but
I'm 47.
Yeah, exactly. You know, alcohol does have a profound effect on the skin. You know, there's some historic examples of people who drink alcohol and chronic rosacea, which is an inflammatory and flushing disorder. And alcohol and its metabolites can actually exacerbate flushing and cause like dilated or open blood vessels in your skin. It can cause ruddiness. Just overall dehydration, and the look of it can actually give you like an aged appearance. So there's a lot of good effects that not drinking alcohol has. That's a double negative, but you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It has on your skin. But I think it's really important on the overall like health and well-being. And I know you've probably have not used alcohol in like quite some, like your whole life, right?
Yeah.
You're an anomaly.
As a disclaimer, yeah, I've never been hungover in my life. But once I heard Jordan Belfer once said the people that he was around that drank the most, because, there was a lot of drugs and stuff I'm sure they were doing.
Yeah.
But he said the people that drank the most were the ones that always looked the oldest, the quickest. Like, is there any merit to that?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, alcohol dehydrates you. So it can inhibit like sort of water retention by the kidney. So actually when you urinate, like you urinate this like super dilute urine, exactly, you're getting dehydrated not only by urinating out more water than you should be, you probably should retain it, but also the metabolites of alcohol are not great on your system overall. And then because of the flushing effect, it can make the skin look red, irritated. Certain people don't have the enzymes to break down alcohol as much as other people do. So that metabolite can build up in their system.
Yeah, it's interesting. So for us, from a recovery standpoint, sleep is kind of like the biggest factor on the quality of your recovery.
Yeah.
And alcohol is just tough. It really kills REM sleep and deep sleep, which are the two most important aspects of your sleep. So that's one of the main reasons that we try to avoid. I get it. Like, not everybody's a Boy Scout and you're going to have your drinks here and there, but choosing the right times. And like for us, if we're working with a CEO, we're trying to teach them, if you have a big board meeting tomorrow, tonight is not the night to have a drink. Maybe Saturday night is, but sure. Push it off. The other thing is it inhibits fat loss through, it slows down that whole process. And so if you heavy drink, you can go almost up to 48 hours without breaking down fat again. So you're storing that whole time.
Interesting. Yeah.
And so when we get a lot of people that come in with weight loss goals, that's one of the first things we're going to. And obviously it is empty calories, right? You're not getting any benefit out of it. Plus it's hurting the sleep. And then also you're not metabolizing fat well. So it's like this secret kind of killer of if anyone who wants to be lean. The Surgeon General just dropped I think they said the third most preventable cause of cancer is alcohol. So that's a pretty big deal. And it's not like, I don't think people are living under a rock and think that it's healthy, but I don't think people look at it the same way they look at it a cigarette. And the data shows pretty similar correlation.
Yeah, I mean,
do you agree with that?
That's huge. Like the Surgeon General just put out their sort of statement, and there are so many cancer-related sort of effects from alcohol. So alcohol is related to certain types of cancer, including things like breast cancer, right? Because it's really important that we take notice of that. And I think we'd be remiss to say that, it's just healthy in moderation. And in fact, that's not true. And we are seeing that even in moderation, there are some deleterious effects of alcohol. And we should think of it like tobacco and smoking, and really counsel patients, and I'm sure your clients, on that. Like, if you can limit it, it's really helpful. And the empty calories, even in, wine, let's say, because people think wine is healthier because of like the antioxidants and there's resveratrol in red wine. But, the empty calories and the effects of the alcohol itself probably outweigh the good effects.
Yeah. And
have you seen any clients like actually stop drinking and just change?
yeah, I actually have one guy in particular. He wasn't like a heavy drinker, but it was just like socially, it would always be like maybe a cocktail or two. And that was like because of his work environment, that was 4 or 5 nights a week. And so again, like he was not an alcoholic by any means, but then all of a sudden when he focused on it and dialed it in, then it became like once a week, and then it became once every 2 weeks. And now it kind of stays there. And it's like enough to where he scratches that itch, or if it's a big event, like he doesn't feel awkward and he can be more social or whatever that thing is. But I mean, the guy he's 59 years old. He's lost almost 30 pounds. And it's a variety of factors that led to that weight loss. But I would be willing to bet he would associate that alcohol as one of the big pillars that allowed that change. Another interesting thing is when you track certain things like heart rate, we can see the effect of something like alcohol. So we know you went out and you had even a couple drinks last night, and then you show up, and I have your heart rate data from a similar workout last week. We get on the treadmill, we're doing about the same intensity, but your heart rate is like floating. And all I mean by floating is it's staying higher than it normally would be.
Oh, interesting. Yeah.
And so if nothing else has changed, but we know that you had alcohol last night and your heart rate is higher, we know your nervous system is more taxed. And so now you're more susceptible to injury. We have to kind of dial back. And it's just a live action.
So even using that health metric of just heart rate, you can see the difference.
Totally. And you pick your metric. If you're a power lifter, if you were testing your strength, some things are worse than others. We definitely see that.
Yeah, I know. Even in the world of rosacea, which is this inflammatory disorder of the skin, people want a quick fix. They want a topical or, a pill, but it's a lot of lifestyle change, and alcohol is like a big contributing factor to that. And it's hard to get that to change.
And what are the other, usually when you drink, it's like, what are the other things you're doing? It's not usually associated with healthy stuff.
But dry January has been like a month where people are trying to normalize not drinking, but still socializing, still going out. So I think that's becoming, more in vogue, and even the younger generation, like Gen Z, they're drinking less. They're less reliant on alcohol.
I saw a statistic on these, I forget the proper term, but the non-alcoholic
beverages.
Those companies, and their growth rate is pretty significant right now. So I think people under the age of 30 are less into drinking than old people.
Yeah, thanks. So what other health metrics are you using for your clients? Like, or what else are you measuring? And is it worth it to invest in like this health tech, wearable tech?
We try to measure as much as we can, but if it's always important that there's actually an intervention associated with the data that you're collecting. For us, heart rate is a huge one because all of the cardio protocols are based on your heart rate. And that's how we also know your improvement. So an easy, simple one for people is your 1 minute heart rate recovery. All that means is you can literally do it if you don't have a heart rate monitor or a watch. You can just do your own pulse check. But if you're in the middle of your workout and you kind of get to where you're actually working, you do your work set, whether you're running a sprint or you do a lift, and you say, my heart rate is at 100. This is just for arbitrary easy math. Start the watch, give it a minute, and see how far it comes down in 1 minute. And so if it came down to 80, your heart rate recovery would be 20, right? If it's above 30, that's excellent, like you're an athlete. If it's above 20, that's good, healthy. If you start to get close to 10, we're like, oh, does this person have an issue? So that's an quick, fast test you can run on yourself, whether you have fancy tech or not. like I was just saying, you can also tell based on your body, instead of gauging off your mind, because sometimes you show up to the gym tired and you're just tired, but you can push through it. Sometimes your central nervous system is not prepared and is not ready for a hard workout. And so instead of going off of how your brain feels, use your heart rate and real data to make that decision.
Okay. Good to know. I mean, sometimes I show up to the gym tired.
Most of the time.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. What do you think about drinking like caffeine or these pre-workout, supplements, or what's that about? A lot of people ask me.
Yeah, I'd be pretty hesitant on the pre-workout stuff. So there's no question about efficacy. If you take a scoop of pre-workout, you're going to feel like you got shot out of a cannon. But is it good and worth it? I would say in general, no. And a lot of those supplements they have other artificial things in them and just not clean sourced supplements, right? Like we're seeing now with these, I don't know if you saw the plant-based protein powders.
Yeah.
And they're finding all these organic stuff and the things that we thought were the healthier versions, because they're coming from certain soils, we're finding heavy metals and toxic materials in the healthier eggs, in the healthier plant-based supplements. And like reputable companies that do really good, products are having to pull these things off the shelf and not sell them. And so it's like,
because of the soil they're grown in.
Yeah.
Okay.
And so the more natural stuff like tea and coffee is better to stick with that and the lowest dose that you could possibly need.
Okay.
So, and what I find is if I do too much early in the day, like if I have a small cup of coffee and it's like a half of a normal size coffee cup, that's enough to get me started for the workout and be good for the day. And then I can have one more normal sized around like noon, and that keeps my energy like solid. Whereas if I come out of the gate with like a triple red eye, like sometimes you and I do, it's like I'm really, really hot for those first few hours of the day, but then I have a much sharper decline.
Yeah.
And so I think stick to the natural sources and only use the littlest amount to get the result you need.
No, that's important, especially if you're like trying to calculate your heart rate recovery and such. Like you're artificially gonna like stimulate yourself. Exactly. So I think that's important. And you probably know the studies better than I do, but it doesn't necessarily improve your long-term function if you're taking pre-workout supplements beforehand.
No, that's all acute, so the benefit would be if I wasn't going to go to the gym, but I had a little coffee and I did, that would be your argument. But in general, no, it definitely improves your workout performance. So if you're an athlete or something like that, it's going to help. It's
interesting because probably the major sports players are so regimented, like they're not drinking alcohol, so... Or what do you think? Really?
I wish that was the case. I come from a football background on a team of 100 people. There's 10 Boy Scouts who are straight as an arrow and never miss and never drink. And then there's the big group in between who just kind of sway. And then there's 20 at the bottom that are just as hard partiers as anyone else.
Oh, wow. And so they're still functioning. Yeah. I mean, it probably wanes over time. Like you can't keep that recovery up as you get older and older. But, it's something to consider. I think it's a good challenge to like just at least challenge yourself to go, maybe even it's just 30 days, like go without drinking and see how you feel.
Have you ever done that?
Yeah.
How often, you're not a super frequent drinker. What would you say? How many drinks a week?
Minimal. Yeah. Maybe none sometimes, even I've gotten more comfortable, even just going to social events and, just drinking water. I think it's definitely normalized now. And so I think
at your peak, what was it? Like when you were young in college, what was your heavy drinking stage?
I still wasn't like super, like a heavy drinker, just because I think, I didn't like the effects afterwards. I didn't feel like I wanted to always be able to perform well, so it was important for me to understand, what makes you feel good, what makes you, feel crappy later on. But
I always have this little person on my shoulder.
Oh yeah.
That like, if I'm at the grocery store, like if someone texts me and was like, could you pick up some Oreos for me? My greatest fear is that one of my clients will be in that grocery store and see me checking out with Oreos. And I'm like, I swear they're not mine.
I've never seen you eat it. Yeah.
So I can imagine though, as a cancer surgeon, you're like, you're cognizant of all the time what you're putting in your body, and it matters.
We want to be real with patients, and of course, like it's hard to eliminate everything, but we do know certain things are worse than others, like smoking, drinking, and those lifestyle interventions can really mean long-term gains, and then of course exercise. We know exercise has like tremendous health benefits. And even in recovery, like there's been good studies to show that even after a cancer diagnosis, there's longer survival and longer recurrence-free survival when you initiate an exercise program, which is, I think, really interesting.
Yeah, we actually have a couple of new clients that are coming out of rounds of chemo. And one of the big parts of the research that we pulled was the importance of just cardiovascular exercise and getting that circulation. And so that's a really big staple of those programs, especially just because depending on how drastic that toll is on their body coming out of chemo, they might not be ready for super intense stuff. So it can be very basic as far as body weight stuff and walking on a treadmill, that kind of work.
And, speaking of January, it's notorious, right? For January 1st, people sign up for the gym.
Yeah.
And then they fall off. Given your expertise in exercise science, but also just human behavior, because you deal with a lot of human behavior, how do you keep people on a program, keep them motivated to go the whole year, or multiple years on an exercise program and not just fall off January?
Yeah. I mean, for me, we're trying to craft like lifestyles. So like, we don't even look at it as, we might have annual goals. Like we'll sit down in December usually with and say like, is there anything huge that's like, I really want to do this? And that usually takes the form of, I want to run a marathon. I've never run a marathon. Or, I want to lose 15 pounds. I have this little bit of belly fat. There's something usually that's a small, like attainable goal within the year, right? But in general, we're just trying to find a way to build a lifestyle where you don't, it's just on autopilot. Like, I don't think about what I eat. Like people think I'm a food shark, like just always thinking about, and it's like, no, I've built a system that I can just live and be on autopilot with. And so we try to do that with our clients. Like, and so it's not about so much that goal orientation. It's more about the foundations of how do we get this person to show up 3 times a week to exercise, and how do we get a B+ diet.
For the exercise novice, someone January rolls around and they want to start something, what do you suggest? Like,
I honestly, I swear, and this sounds like so obvious, but I genuinely believe having an accountability partner is the easiest way to start a new habit. And it usually comes in the form of, it's unfortunate for the other person, but find somebody who's really enjoys the thing that you don't enjoy.
Oh, okay.
Right? Like you and I.
Yeah.
You enjoy exercise. You don't get giddy about, oh, did you see the new machine they put in the gym like I do, right?
Yeah, exactly.
And so I think that energy kind of passes off to you and it gets you more excited. And maybe on the days where you're like, you walk in like this,
I don't know how to use.
but you end up getting into it, right?
Yeah.
And on the flip side, if there was ever a day where I'm kind of like sluggish, I'm like, but I got to show up for Anthony, And I think that you do that for the first period when it's really challenging, and then you look up and it's been 12 weeks and you've built a habit, so you don't necessarily need to lean on that accountability partner as much. But I think that's the easiest way to start any new thing.
I mean, I think it's great to have, a gym buddy or someone to like exactly hold you accountable, but also that you can relate to and, you're motivated by. I think we can't underestimate like what that means to have like some sort of motivation behind it. And it's not just a goal oriented like 15 pounds or, just a number that you're trying to hit, right? It's really more of a lifestyle integration, something that you can sustain throughout a longer period of time.
Yeah. I think you also have to recognize, what your personality type is. If you don't go to the gym, why is it that you don't go to the gym? Is it because of time? Then we just need to reallot what your schedule looks like. You probably need to move it to the morning. Is it because you don't have a plan? Some people, it's like perfectionism. Like I have that a little bit. And so if I don't have a plan, I'm like, I'm not going to go. Or I'm not just going to go there and bounce around machine to machine. And so it feels kind of aimless and worthless. And so maybe you just need to buy a $50 program so there's structure and exactly I'm going to show up on these days, do this thing, get in, get out, right? Kind of the antidote's different based on who you are. For some people, it's just that it's monotonous. They hate exercise. They had a bad experience when they were young, or they just like don't like that uncomfortable feeling of my heart rate's elevated, yada, yada. And so then it comes down to go with a friend, go do something in a different environment that's not in a gym setting. It's not like a one size fits all.
Okay, yeah. And you have different types of clients. So you have like a working mom, a CEO, someone whose schedule is like pretty erratic if they're traveling. How do you tweak it for everyone? Like, how do you, like, is it virtual trainings? Is it Is it just do something in your hotel room, 15 minutes, or what's
it's a
the
good
minimal?
Mix. The key is that we try to stick to 3 times a week.
Okay.
And so if that's like if your worst week is 3 times, that's pretty achievable.
Okay.
Even if you're traveling, it's like we can get on a virtual call and hit an easy half hour, even if you're in China or whatever, like 3 times is very reasonable. We're not asking people to be there, 6 workouts and all of them have to be intense and chicken breasts and, it's just not that. So if you kind of get rid of that image, it's not so challenging.
For me, I just want to get people to wash their face 1 time a day.
Well, that's what I was going to ask you is being honest with myself, I'm in such a rush in the morning.
Yeah.
I have time for like 1, maybe 2 things after I get out of the shower. I don't even know where the mirror is in my bathroom.
Yeah.
Right?
You're in and out. Yeah, exactly.
Like what is the one thing? Like if I could do one thing that's going to do 80% of the work for my skin, is it the moisturizing? Is it the sunscreen? Because I know you're huge. I've learned from you, like the sunscreen is what's going to cause most of the aging.
For sure. I mean, if you had to do one thing in your life, just skin wise, obviously stay hydrated, but
Botox.
Sunscreen. No, yeah, exactly. Sunscreen is the dermatologist's dream because UV just ages us extrinsically. It causes photo aging. It also causes skin cancer. So we're always about like protecting yourself. If there was one topical thing that you could do, it's definitely sunscreen every morning. And then obviously if you're at the beach, reapply or, don't get a sunburn. It's really helpful. Combining that with a moisturizer really locks it in. But I always tell people keep their face damp a little bit and then put it on. It really like locks in the water.
Really?
So you want to hydrate from the outside in too.
I always think about stuff too, like we brush our teeth.
Yeah.
Twice a day, most people, right?
Yeah.
Twice a day religiously.
Hopefully. Yeah.
Yeah. And I'm like, what is that thing for skin? And I guess it's, for me, like I think about an exercise. I try to explain to people like mobility is like brushing your teeth for your joints. So it's like the frequency is really important. Like it would be weird if you went 5 days and then tried to super brush your teeth really hard, right?
Exactly.
But it's better if you just a little bit in the morning, a little bit at night. The same thing with mobility. It's like you want to take care of your joints, just do a little bit so that you don't wake up 4 days later and you're stiff as a board.
Yeah, consistency is key for, most things. I also find it just like a nice way to unwind too. Like, obviously you need to brush your teeth, but I also like taking care of my skin,
So relaxing.
Yeah.
I don't know if I have that in me.
No, probably not. But
that's how you feel at the gym when I'm
exactly.
machines. Okay, now I understand.
People have been asking me a lot about like collagen supplements because there's new studies coming out that collagen supplements actually do help with your skin because they've done like labeling and they actually see the supplement getting, through the GI system and then into the skin. But I know it's good for joints. That has been well studied. Like, do you suggest any supplements? Because that was another question people have been like asking.
A lot of collagen, huh?
Yeah. But what about like for working out? Is there anything that you really do believe in?
Anything or just specific to collagen? I mean, the collagen
anything,
like for the connective tissues and stuff definitely has some support. We're talking about pretty small percentage changes there. Do you take it?
So I don't remember to take it. I have it.
Powder, like drinkable?
Yeah, it's powder. But again, it's something that I haven't like been consistent enough with. Yeah. Exactly.
It's hard to see the results too. It's not like you're like, oh, my tendons feel stronger this week, or I guess with the skin a little bit more. The supplementation, I feel like when you get your blood work done and you see deficiencies, that's where you're going to see the biggest like instant change.
For sure.
Creatine is really personally the only thing that I take consistently pretty much since I was like, I don't know, 20 years old.
Yeah. But you have to stay hydrated with that, right?
Yeah.
Drink plenty of water. Yeah,
drink plenty of water. But even now, it's one of those things where the meatheads a long time ago were like, oh, this is making me stronger. This is helping me build muscle, right? And now there's a lot of cognitive function research that's coming out that it's actually good for the brain too. So the meatheads were onto something back then. In general, if it comes in over the counter or you can just go pick it up, it's probably like not that potent compared to other things, right? Now, if you have to go to a doctor to get it, there's a good chance that's probably pretty potent and that works, right? So that's kind of how I stand on supplements.
Okay, so not truly needed.
It's really like fine-tuning a Ferrari is how I view supplements.
I like that.
Yeah.
What about like during midday? Like I'm always running around, so I'm constantly walking. But for people who are like at a desk, pretty standstill, what do you suggest? Like
Just
they've
to
done their
avoid getting stiff, or
and they've done their gym workout, in the morning.
Yeah.
They'll do it at night. But
2 moves actually, new to the repertoire. Shout out to Dr. Duggan.
Oh yeah, love Dr. Duggan.
Fuel, Sport, and Spine.
We should get him on.
But the Brugger pose, so it's literally just like the antithesis to all things bad posture. And if you're in a chair or whatever you're at, you literally just open up, you sit as tall as you can, like if your head was on a string to the ceiling.
I'm going to do this.
Yep.
Yeah.
And then you bring your chest up as big as you can. Palms go up and you lift, or you widen them out as wide as you can. We're going to knock out all the...
Yeah.
And then you just look back and you hold that position.
Yeah.
And all you're doing is, instead of being everything rounded forward, tightening forward, you're just going the opposite way and holding that posture. And that is the easiest reset during the day. The second one is called a wall angel, but basically, Google it. There'll be a bunch of different variations on YouTube or whatever.
Oh,
you just in front and go up and you make a little V to the wall and pull it down. Shoulder blades move.
So that's for your back.
Traps, exactly.
Yeah.
So that'd be 2 go-to moves, but also it's about the variation. I think people, again, Dr. Duggan was awesome about this, is people just want to be in this posture, right? The key is that you're just not in the same spot for too long.
Okay.
So even if you're kind of weird on the angle, it's like 2 minutes and then I move and then I move. It's like, then I'm not putting the same compressive forces in the same direction, causing all these muscles to shorten and creating the postural issues.
So if you're sitting at a desk, those 2 things.
Just keep moving around.
Or standing desk or I know. I'm always moving, but even like operating it, sometimes you get like pretty stiff and you need to just sort of remember to release.
Anything repetitive, right?
Yeah.
It's like, even if it's a movement, I don't know what, I've never handled a scalpel, but if it's always like this kind of pouring over motion, or like my sister used to work at Baskin Robbins and she'd come home and her elbow is right. Like she was standing and moving, but it was the same scoop the ice cream over and over again. That's where injuries happen, is when you do too much of the same thing.
Okay. Yeah. So repetitive injury. Okay. Good pro tip.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Beware ice cream scoopers. Yeah. So Sam, I always ask you a ton of questions. So this is your opportunity to ask me anything.
Yes.
Because I'm always firing questions at you early in the morning. Anything you've been thinking about?
Yes.
Yeah.
Dermatology for rent. I think I'm curious. So I had one laser hair removal experience.
Oh, wow.
So I had neck hair.
Not where I thought this was going.
I know this is shocking for you.
Yeah.
But I had this hair in the neck, right? And the dermatologist was like, "Oh, we can zap that." And I was like, "Okay."
Sure.
Wasn't the best experience in my life as far as
I'm sorry to hear that.
Pain. It wasn't terrible, but I'm just curious, does it actually go away forever? Does it turn because he was saying it turns it blonde?
No. So laser hair removal, that's what people do call it. They call it laser hair removal, but we actually don't use that term, dermatologists. We use laser hair reduction because yeah, I know.
Sorry,
we don't want to give people false hope that it's permanent removal, because it's actually not. It's reduction. You're reducing the hair density. It can get to the point where it doesn't grow back, which is great for because that's what we want to achieve. But basically, the laser is a certain wavelength. So that wavelength will target a specific chromophore in the skin. So for hair removal, we're talking about the pigment in the hair. So you can actually only target dark hair, like your hair, you can target. You can't really target blonde hair. And that's unfortunate. So those light, fine hairs that some people hate, you can't target with a laser because we just don't have the wavelength to do that. They've even tried experiments where they pigment the hair and dye it, but the pigment is not actually in
just for men.
Yeah,
and
exactly.
Laser removal?
No, it doesn't work. So a tattoo, we target the pigment in the tattoo ink. We're targeting the pigment in the hair follicle. So that's why you have to be really cautious. If someone's tan and their skin pigment is sort of heightened, that's when you can run into trouble. So you have to pick a better wavelength, like a 1064 nanometer laser. You're really getting into the details now. Yeah. But again, you're targeting the hair, heating it up, and sort of it's targeting the hair at the bulge, or where the stem cells are, and you're reducing it. So it will take longer to grow back, and then eventually it'll miniaturize, and you're sort of reducing the hair there. So, but it is painful actually.
You use infrared? I know that like that's starting to get much more popular as far as saunas and stuff.
Yeah, no, the laser is actually like a true laser wavelength, and that's the safest way to do hair reduction or hair removal. And so,
Just in general though, for the derm, do you use much infrared?
well, for lasers, it's near infrared, like 1064 or lower. Infrared light and red light. So red light is a form of visible light, what we like see. Red light is very anti-inflammatory. So we use that for anti-inflammatory. I even use it for like skin cancer reduction when we are using a photosensitizer. So a medicine that we put on the skin that gets absorbed into the skin. And then when you shine the red light on it, it activates this compound and it causes destruction of the precancerous cells.
I have one of those big red lights that hangs on the wall.
So do I, yeah.
I can't decide. You think it's worth it?
Yeah, I mean, the thing is with red light, you have to have like a good enough fluence. So like the energy has to be high enough, right?
I picked the one you told me to get, so I hope it's the right one.
It is, yeah. But then the second thing is you have to actually be close to it, right? And so because light travels over a distance, and as that light travels, it sort of dissipates. So you have to be close to it. And then third, you have to use it and be compliant. So like we're talking like every day. So if you can't even brush your teeth every day, like
whoa.
Yeah, I know. But no, I do tell people if they're gonna invest in this technology, which is great, they should use it. They
is
need
it
to
like
be
supplements
compliant.
where it's like if you're not moisturizing and using sunscreen,
Yeah.
don't worry about the
Exactly,
laser yet,
yeah.
right? It's like there's
Totally. There's steps, and like
a
people want to
hierarchy.
jump to like the coolest thing, but honestly, like baby steps, like use sunscreen, drink water, and then
But
invest in a red light.
this contrast therapy and the cold plunge is driving me a little bit crazy.
Yeah.
It's like
I see it all over Instagram.
I'm like, you went to the gym once last month. The
But
cold
your
plunge is not
yeah,
the secret to your success. Like, come on. I get, but that's what everyone wants to talk about,
Yeah, because it's
crazy.
sexy. It looks fun. It's like challenging, but not actually like physically challenging. Like you don't have to lift anything. You just have to dunk yourself in a pool. But there is some merit to it, right? If you're
For sure.
optimizing everything else.
Yeah, for sure. I actually would lean more towards getting in the sauna first for health benefits before like cold plunge is more like dopamine and energy related. Whereas like sauna is going to help you actually like
relax and recover.
Fat loss and cardiovascular benefits in the sauna, whereas you're not going to get that as much in the cold plunge.
But we see like athletes sort of bathe in ice like after.
That's something a little different. So they're doing that for a recovery purpose, whereas most people are going into doing the cold plunge now, kind of in the current trend as like to start the day.
Oh, got it.
This wakes me up and
So it does give you, it sort of gives you energy and But you're saying for recovery and just health benefits, sauna, dry sauna
for health
or
benefits,
wet sauna?
They all have different. Like the infrared sauna is better for healing tissue, right?
Yeah.
And it's more comfortable for people because it doesn't have to be at as high of a temperature. Whereas that dry, you're at like 180 degrees plus before you start seeing really good benefits. But you can actually see heart health improves, brown fat. So there's like that is one of the only things where you literally just have to sit there and do nothing and you'll get health benefits. So that I try to incorporate that with a lot of weight loss people, especially if you don't like going to the gym. I'm like, I just kind of say, listen, we're going to work out twice. And then I want you to go to the sauna on the days after we work out. And that basically gives me 4 days of cardio or weight loss effect. And you're obviously burning more calories than you would at rest.
Good to know.
The way the athletes do the cold plunge, a lot of that started with, just trying to reduce inflammation. So if you've been on your legs a whole bunch and you get into the cold water, then we're just trying
helping
to
your
reduce
muscles recover, reduces soreness.
They're not going for that dopamine hit.
Okay. It's more about like quelling the inflammation.
Exactly.
Okay.
Yeah.
Amazing.
And then the PTs do the contrast therapy is when they go hot to cold, cold. So does that affect do you do that type of stuff when you're healing from surgeries and trying to get rid of scar tissue?
Yeah, the old adage is like, in the acute phase you use ice, right? Because like ice decreases inflammation. So like in the first 48 hours, like if you get a laser or something destructive, use ice to reduce inflammation, reduce bruising. But then heat actually helps to warm up tissue, bring blood flow to the tissue. And that's really important as well in the healing phase. So more acute, we use ice. And then later on, we use heat to actually bring blood flow to the tissue and such.
What about the hyperbaric chambers?
I mean, it's really good for healing tissue, right? So in certain disease states or things that like, where there's tissue necrosis or blood flow compromise, like hyperbaric oxygen can actually help healing tissue because you're bringing like a highly concentrated oxygen concentrate,
Is there any like correlation between exercise and skin health that you know of?
Yeah, I mean, it's great cardiovascular wise, right? Like you're increasing blood flow, right? And that's hugely important because you're bringing blood flow to your skin. You're also maintaining like a healthier hydration theoretically, right? Like if you're hydrating yourself while you're exercising, that's all going to make your skin glow. It brings endorphins. It makes you happy, So all these things can really have positive feedback on the skin itself.
Yeah. What's your favorite part of the workout process that we went through? Like, what are the big keynotes that you feel like you took away compared to, because you had been doing fitness prior before we met. It was like, as I recall, when you first came in before we did the assessment, it was a lot of Soul Cycle.
Yeah.
It was a lot of, boot camp style workouts.
Totally.
And you were working out probably what, three to 5 times a week?
Yeah, for sure.
Consistently.
But it was a different type of workout. And so while it maintained like leanness, it didn't, build muscle. And I think that's the difference in the programs that we've incorporating more muscular growth has really helped just, you feel stronger, you feel more solid. And I think it's helped in a lot of other respects. I mean, I've always been a good sleeper. I can sleep anywhere, but honestly, the consistency of and the timing of the workouts, by the end of the day, I'm so ready for sleep. It's great. And I don't need, anything to fall asleep. I just fall asleep very naturally. And I think timing the workouts very consistently. I know some people like work out later in the day. Some people work out in the morning. Some people vary it. But I think having a really consistent set time has actually helped set the sleep clock for me.
Yeah, I feel the same way. Like if I'm up early, if I'm up by 5:15, 5:30, I'm no problem going to sleep. By 9:30 rolls around and
I thought that was
out
like
of commission.
A huge added benefit. Yeah. But yeah, and then changing to more like of a muscle building program has, I think for me in my age range of the 40-ish age range.
40-ish.
I say it lightly.
Well, the other thing that was interesting with you is, you were the first person that I saw, if you want to talk about the Ehlers-Danlos.
Oh, yeah.
And the strength training really, so you had a lot of like elbow tendonitis, Achilles tendonitis, and then
I haven't been officially diagnosed yet, but the flexibility, like the increased flexibility, I would feel
because you were hypermobile.
Yeah.
And then after about a year of strength training, kind of that tendonitis stuff has almost, knock on wood, it's disappeared, right?
Like I used to play a lot of tennis. I still do, but like I would have like tennis elbow and I would never understand why I kept getting it. And now after the strength training, it's not like you're purposely trying to strengthen your tendons. Like who thinks about that? But actually it's been a game changer.
That's why, for a long time, women were always worried about getting bulky.
Yeah.
But they were having these similar hypermobile issues. And that's why strength training could be so impactful. And once you get over that hurdle, if it's not going to make you bulky, like it's one of the best antidotes for a lot of their osteoporosis and tendon-based problems.
For sure. Yeah, no, it's really, I think it was a huge benefit.
But that's what's exciting, right? Yeah. I just feel like it's something that everyone has access to, and it's preventative instead of a lot of what we do in the U.S. is reactive, and so that's why that's where my focus goes.
January, we're all about being proactive, setting goals, and maybe just challenging yourself to go without alcohol for a set amount of days, see how you feel.
Yeah, I think you go find yourself a good workout partner, run for 2 weeks, see how you guys do. I bet most people will hit their goals.
All right. So thanks for coming back in 2025.
Thank you for having me.
We'll see you again. Thanks so much for listening to this episode of Give Good Face. Subscribe on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube, and wherever you listen to podcasts. And follow along on social at Dr. Anthony Rossi and at Rossi Durham MD.